like it means nothing.
Wow, that intro goes so hard. Okay, so hi everyone. This talk will be about a vulnerability chain I found in Google Services. But on the way, I will also be covering a bunch of really cool web security concepts. So hopefully you'll be able to pick something out of it for your own research and fun. I'm Lyra. You might know me from the internet as Rebane 2001. And I like to play around with the web and web browsers. And sometimes I also find vulnerabilities. So let's start off with the topic of clickjacking. So on the internet, you have these things called iframes. And essentially, what they allow you to do is take one website and put it inside of another one. And clickjacking is using that to trick someone into performing some sort of action they did not intend on performing. So let's take a look at an example. Let's just say that I really want to give a talk at some cool hacker event. But to do that, I really need one of the organizers to click this little accept button here. How could I accomplish that? Well, as a hacker, I can just take this admin panel web page thing, throw it into an iframe on my own website, and cover it up with random stuff. And then it's going to look like something completely different. I can send this link to one of the organizers, and they just see this cookie, they click on it, but in reality, they are accepting my talk. So that's clickjacking. It's something that has been around since before I was even born. And it's also something that every website is vulnerable to by default. But at the same time, it's very easy to mitigate. You can use this X-frame options header to limit framing to just the same origin, so the same website, or even block it entirely, depending on what your goals are. And these days, you can even use content security policy, which offers additional features and security. And since this is such an old attack, it is also very widely known and mitigated. So even this example from the beginning, in reality, would just give me this little error thing. Let's take a look at another website, such as Google Docs. If I try to frame Google Docs, you can see I get the same little error thing. And in the headers, you can see it does, in fact, have the X-frame options same origin header. So Google Docs is not vulnerable to this type of clickjacking attack. But something interesting happens once we try to embed a document or a presentation on a website. Because if we try that, for some reason, it now works, and there is no header. So did we just find a vulnerability? Well, not really. This frame is vulnerable to clickjacking, but it's an intentional trade-off to allow framing of the page, and it has safety measures in place, such as disabling most of the dangerous features. So even if you do a clickjacking attack, you can't accomplish much. All right, so that's clickjacking. Now let's get on to the actual story of how I found this vulnerability chain. It all started off with me just playing on Google Docs. And I just so happened to try out this feature that lets you add a YouTube video into your presentation. You just pick it from that video over there, or the bigger thing. And when you play your presentation, you can see we can play the video. Awesome. But how does this work? Well, it uses those very same iframes from earlier. So that's interesting. Can we do something interesting with it, maybe, if we change this URL to something else? I wanted to try it out, so I wanted to figure out how this URL got there in the first place. I fired up my favorite HTTP proxy, looked at the traffic, and found that we don't give the server the full URL, but just the video ID to the video. So we can't control the entire URL, but maybe we can still do something interesting with just this little part there. I tried the first thing that came to my mind, which is path traversal. Path traversal is this thing in computer systems where going into a directory that's just 2 dots will actually take you up one folder. And it's the same for websites as well. So if we have this YouTube embed ... site, it will just turn into the YouTube homepage. Would this work? I used my HTTP proxy to change this video ID to ... and this is what I saw. So you can see this familiar error page, but this is a very interesting sign because, in fact, that means that we are on the YouTube homepage. And of course, it has those protection measures in place, so it just gives an error. But it's very interesting that we can embed other YouTube pages into our slideshow. Are there any other interesting pages on YouTube that we might want to frame? It seems like most of them just give us this error because of the X-frame options header. Of course, we can embed videos, but that's where we started, so no use in that. And we can embed some resources and files and stuff, which is extremely funny to have in a slideshow, but not very useful from a security perspective. What we really want to do is somehow break out of that YouTube thing entirely. And what we want for that is an open redirect. So what is an open redirect? It's this quote-unquote vulnerability that takes you from one URL to another one. And in most cases, this is not even considered to be an actual vulnerability because, well, it doesn't really have much impact. But these kinds of things are extremely useful for chaining them with other things. So if we could find one, we could break out of the YouTube domain entirely. So how do you find one? The first thing that came to my mind was looking at the links in the description. Because if you didn't know, on YouTube, the links will first go through this weird redirect URL, and only then to the actual page you were going for. But unfortunately, it turns out this thing has this weird token thing in it as well. And this means that if someone else were to open this link with a different login session, it would just show them this page. So we would have to trick them into clicking the Go to Site button. And even worse for our case, it has the very same header set, so that wouldn't even work. OK, where else could we find an open redirect? Maybe the login feature, because if you log in onto a website, you'd expect it to take you back to the same page you were on before. So let's see if that's the case. Clicking that link opens up this long Google URL, and once you log in, it takes you to this other YouTube sign-in URL thing, and then it takes you back to the same page you were on. So what we're interested in is this little login sign-in thing URL. So let's clean it up a little and take a look at it. This is the URL. If we go on this URL, it takes us to youtube.com. Awesome. Can we use this as an open redirect to some other pages? Let's try my own website. It doesn't work. OK, maybe it's limited to like Google stuff. Let's try google.com. That didn't work either. Interesting. But then the youtube.com works at least, right? We just saw this youtube.com redirect work earlier, but now it no longer works. What's up with that? Well, it turns out I forgot the small little title in the URL there. The subdomain. If we change it to www, it works. Awesome. But that raises the question, if it's just youtube.com URLs, why would they put the full URL there instead of just the path? I was confused by that, but then I remembered that YouTube has some other services as well, such as YouTube Music. So maybe we can, instead of www, go to music.youtube.com. Yep, that works. So does that mean that we can go to any YouTube subdomain? Let's try the, I don't know, admin one. Yep, it works. Awesome. So you can see here how we have been chipping away at the attack surface slowly. We started off with just an embed. Then we path traversed our way to the entire www.youtube.com domain. And now we have access to every YouTube subdomain. But then I didn't really know what to do next. And I was kind of stuck. So I took a break and went on to do some research on some other sites. Eventually, I was researching Google's login flow. And I was looking at the requests to see if anything interesting is going on. And then I noticed something. Even though I am logging onto Google's website, google.com, for some reason, it's going through accounts.youtube.com. That's interesting. It seems like what happens is if you log into one Google service, it tries to log you into every domain, just so it's more convenient for you. So if you log onto Gmail, you also get logged into YouTube. But maybe we can use that somehow. Let's see if we can use that as an open redirect. Still no. But maybe we can at least redirect to Google services, because it's supposed to be like a part of the login flow. And yeah, that works. Can we maybe roll around back to Google Docs? Yep, that works as well. So you can see how, with just a little bit more work, we have increased our attack surface back to the Google Docs website, which lets us do some very interesting stuff. So let's try it out. We create this video ID that is a combination of all of our weird path traversals and redirects and stuff. And when we put it on a slide, it goes through all the redirects, and we get Google Docs inside of Google Docs. And the reason this is really cool is that we can now create slideshows that are recursive. But notice something interesting about this. This Google Docs homepage has the same origin header set, yet it works here. The reason for that is because the iframe is on docs.google.com, and the content of the iframe is that as well. So we have just found a way to create same origin Google Docs iframes on the Google Docs domain. And now, from here on out, it's very easy. We just set up some weird clickjacking stuff. I don't know, let the user click some hacking button, and we're done. Awesome. But what's the actual impact of this? I looked around a bit, and it seems like there really isn't much you can do from the Google Docs homepage. So, like, the worst thing you can do is delete the document, but even that requires like pressing 2 separate buttons and only puts it in the trash instead of deleting permanently, so not very useful. But maybe there are some other interesting pages on the Google Docs domain. I did some recon. I started off with Wayback Machine. On Wayback Machine, if you put in a domain, you can actually click that little URLs button, and that lets you see all of the archived URLs. So this is an amazing resource for recon, but in this case, I couldn't find anything that would be useful for me. Next, I tried something called Google Dorking, where you just put some search parameter things in the search and find stuff. I was going through different versions of file preview pages, but it seemed like they all redirected to Google Drive, which kind of breaks this thing for us. This open thing goes to Google Drive. This leave thing goes to Google Drive. This file view thing that goes to Google Drive. This folder thing goes to Google Drive, so it seems kind of hopeless. It seems like they migrated everything. But then I just randomly found this very specific URL format that doesn't go to Google Drive, but gives us the same page. That's interesting. And it's actually very useful for us, because this page is on docs.google.com, so we can frame it. But it also lacks the click-checking protections that the other Google Docs pages do. So, for example, the share button is just clickable, even in an iframe. Can we use that somehow? I was looking into this a bit more and realized that the impact of this is even wider, because if you take a Google Drive folder ID and throw it in that URL over there, it opens up a folder as well with that share button available. So if we can trick someone into clicking the share button, we gain access to their Google Drive folder. Very interesting. So let's try it out. Let's do a demo. So you can see here that it, okay, I don't know what's going on with that, but let's investigate. I pulled up my DevTools, very confused as to what's going on, created an iframe with the same URL, and now it works. What's going on? Why did it not work in our slideshow, but it works when I add it manually? Very weird. I opened up the network requests and started to look at what the difference might be. And eventually, I narrowed it down to these headers. You can see here that if these headers are present, then this segfetch site header decides whether we are allowed to see the page or not. Why is that the thing? It seems like a weird thing to implement. It seems to me that this thing is a way to prevent embedding pages on cross-site origins, because there is no way to detect what the parent page is from the website itself without running JavaScript first. So if you want to serve an error page instead of blocking the framing outright, then this is kind of the only way to do it. So yeah, that's unfortunate that this is a hurdle, so we need to figure out how to get it to work for our attack. And to simplify the things, you can see the problem is we're going from YouTube to Google Docs. If we went straight from Google Docs to Google Docs, it would be fine. We need to find a way to go first from YouTube to some Google Docs page that is happy with this weird redirect, and only then onto the special file page. You need to find that middle part. So I got back to searching the stuff. And one of the things I found interesting in the searches was that for some reason, a lot of the documents had some like weird government stuff in there. When you click on the link, it disappears. It's some sort of like cheese thing, I think. Like, it turns out it's not legacy, but it's for like logging in or switching accounts or SSO or whatever, but we don't really care about that. What we care about is that this is perfect for our, well, why is it doing that? It spoiled the funny bit. Okay, pretend you didn't see that. So, all right, so let's try out that government redirect thing. I put /a/a in the file name, and when I launch the presentation, you can see that it works. Awesome. So now all we need to do is create a simple click-checking attack around it, and we're done. We start off by figuring out what we want the user to press. We then mask this thing out with some stuff, add some instructions, and to make it more convincing, we can do something like this. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You would not fall for that. Don't worry, I got you. But in all seriousness, we need to do better. That is not good enough. It requires too much social engineering. So what's our current state right now? Our current attack requires 2 button presses and for you to type in an email address. Can we skip them somehow? I remembered that Google Drive has this feature where you can request access to a folder or file you don't have access to. Doing so sends out an email where if you click on the button, you get this pop-up, you click that button, you get this other pop-up, and you click that button down there, and you've given access to the file. So maybe we can use that flow somehow. It's not perfect, but it's 2 clicks, and you don't have to type in a suspicious email address. I took a look at the email, and it seems like it's on some URL that looks like this. And, well, unfortunately for us, this is a Google Drive domain, not the Google Docs one. But I figured that since the different pages are so similar, maybe we can just take the query parameters and throw them onto the Google Docs URL. Would that work? Yep, it works. So, can we do even better? I wanted to look into this little dialog thing here. I opened up my DevTools. I looked at the code, set up a few breakpoints. And, well, when you're doing testing and stuff, it's always best to start off simple. So I decided to get rid of all the query parameters, except for the email one, of course. I refreshed the page and started debugging it. I looked at it and didn't really find anything too interesting. But when I resumed the debugger, I saw this. That's like a completely different dialog from what we saw earlier. Why are we getting that one for no reason? I closed my DevTools. I refreshed the page. It's still the same one. What's up with that? Well, remember how I changed the query parameters to just be the email address? For some reason, doing that goes through a different code path and gives us a form that looks like this. And this form is amazing for us as the attackers because it autofills the email, it sets the permissions, it does the notification stuff, and it has a one-click send button. We just need one click, and it's on a button labeled send. That's perfect. So, let's create the demo for real this time. We start off with that thing we just found. We throw on some Google Forms stuff to make it believable. And then we just, start coloring it up creatively, do some styling, whatever, make it look convincing. And now we have this presentation that includes a clickjacking attack inside of it. We can pull it up, change the URL to /%, and we get a page that looks like this. You send this Google Docs link to someone, they are looking at it, and they think that it's just a Google form. They fill it out. They make sure to never submit their passwords. And they click the little send button. It suspiciously disappears. And when I look at my email, I've got their folder. All right, so what did Google think of this thing? I submitted it to them in the July of last year. They got back to me on the same day, and a couple of weeks later, they gave me the bounty. A couple of months after that, I came out with a blog post, and then in February 2025, I think I did some talk on some stage. So the bounty, it was $3133.7 plus a $1,000 bonus, which is pretty awesome. Well, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but on the very same day, they announced that they're increasing the payouts 5 times, so. Yeah, thank you so much. A few things before I go. I've written a blog post about it. It's really cool. You can find it there, lyra.horse, also my contact information. For questions and stuff, just find me later at Disobey. I'm happy to have a chat. And I was thinking I want to take a selfie, but I know a lot of people don't really want to be identifiable in photos, so I decided to use my 3DS for that with a 0.3 megapixel camera, so none of you will actually be visible.